KirTop here, and these are 100 most terrifying theories about ancient aliens. When UFOs became a national issue. Antiquity is not the place where you expect a bureaucracy to record UFOs, but in Rome, they had it. The priests had direct access to power, and they kept official chronicles of omens. Everything that happened in the sky was perceived as a message from the gods. And if a flaming shield flew over a city, it was considered a political signal. Gaius Julius Obsequent, a Roman historian, collected such reports in Prodigiorum Liber, and the list looked eerily familiar. Glowing discs, moving lights, figures in the sky that hovered and disappeared. This is not folklore. It is government reporting. The wildest thing? Sometimes based on these phenomena, the Senate canceled decisions, started wars, or conversely, concluded peace. Because if a sign comes from above, you are obliged to respond to it. One of these signs is the disappearance of King Romulus. The founder of Rome was supposedly lifted up to heaven right in front of the crowd. He didn't die. He didn't run away. He literally ascended. That is, Rome has a founding god who flew in from there. This is not about whether they believed in UFOs. This is about how seriously they took them. The ancients couldn't explain what it was, but they didn't ignore it either. And today we do the opposite. We know that not everything is clear, but we pretend that everything is fine. Place where you can find a UFO. American scientist, professor at Northeastern University Brian Helmuth, claims that the search for alien life on Earth should start with the ocean. In his opinion, the oceans and seas hide many mysteries, and people have only a superficial idea of their depths. Helmuth, not being a specialist in the field of UFOs but having knowledge of oceanology, believes that something related to extraterrestrial civilizations can be hidden underwater. I will add that oceanographer Paula Bontempi recently joined a special NASA commission for the study of unidentified objects. Earlier, NASA announced the appointment of a new head of UFO research, Mark McInerney, who previously represented the organization in the Pentagon. This emphasizes the seriousness of the approach to the study of this phenomenon. Two-headed alien. A strange mummy with two heads was discovered in Tibet, which was immediately dubbed the two-headed alien. This artifact shocked scientists and fans of mysticism. The mummy looks as if its origins go beyond the earthly, which gives rise to many theories, from mutations to extraterrestrial civilizations. Some researchers believe that this could be a ritual artifact or a cult image created by ancient people to worship unknown forces. Interestingly, the structure of the mummy looks unusual even for mutations known to biology. The proportions of its body and the shape of its head suggest that it could be the embodiment of something mythical or unearthly. Ancient Tibetan legends often mention heavenly beings who visited Earth. Perhaps this artifact is an attempt to depict those whom the ancients considered gods. However, there is also a more mundane version. The mummy may be the result of artificial mummification of two different bodies connected for ritual purposes. Metallic objects from Gaius. The La Mana caves in Ecuador have attracted the attention of not only archaeologists, but also fans of mysticism and ufology for many years. The story of the discovery of metal objects in these caves is shrouded in mystery and mysticism. According to legend, metal plates were discovered in La Mana with symbols engraved on them that resemble modern diagrams, maps, and even technical drawings. These findings became the basis for hypotheses about the existence of an unknown civilization in the distant past that possessed highly developed technologies, or about contacts between ancient people and extraterrestrial beings. Supporters of these theories argue that such complex and detailed symbols could not have been created with primitive tools and should indicate more advanced knowledge. Some researchers even suggest that the plates could have served as star maps or technological instructions left by aliens. However, most scientists are very skeptical about these findings. There is no conclusive evidence that the metal objects from La Mana are indeed ancient. Some experts point to possible traces of modern metalworking and the inconsistency of these artifacts with styles and technologies known in ancient Ecuador. Moreover, there is a lack of reliable dating and context for the objects, which further undermines their authenticity. Archaeologists believe that these artifacts may have been created in a later period, perhaps as part of a hoax or to attract tourists. Thus, despite the fascinating and mysterious story of the metal objects from the caves of Lamana, their origin and meaning remain in question. The story of the caves of Lamana is an example of how myths and legends can intertwine with reality, creating fascinating but often unreliable stories about our past. Computer that is 2,500 years old. Aegean Sea, April 1900. Literally 100 meters from the coast of a small island, divers discovered the site of an ancient shipwreck located at a depth of 45 meters. For 2 years, researchers and archaeologists studied the debris, among which they discovered part of a metal box made of coral and created in the 2nd century BC. This device is the first mechanical computer ever discovered by mankind. The mechanism is 1,500 years older than any similar artifact and contains dozens of gears that control the mechanism. It is assumed that an analog computer could be used to predetermine astronomical events. Ancient Greece, it turns out, had knowledge of mechanics and could create devices, which completely changes our perception of history. It is assumed that the ship set sail from the shores of the island of Rhodes because this place was considered a haven of high technology of that time. The poets of ancient Greece repeatedly mentioned in their works animated statues that could freeze in place or begin to move as if life had been breathed into them. It is quite possible that this was not a literary device, but the first prototypes of robots created by man. The Greeks claimed that they received knowledge from the gods who descended to them from heaven. It is possible that in this way they explained the meeting with aliens who decided to share their technology with humanity. Religion, UFOs, and space mythology. Today, we divide the world into believers and skeptics, but there is one area where faith and science are strangely intertwined. This is ufology. Essentially, UFOs are a new form of an old religion, only instead of gods, creatures from other star systems. Belief in aliens has become what belief in angels used to be. They come from the sky, they are higher in intelligence than us, and often bring revelations. Philosopher Paul Kurtz called ufology the mythology of the space age. He said people need to feel that they are not alone, that someone is watching and perhaps guiding us. In the past, God did this. Today, space brothers. Psychologist Carl Jung wrote back in the 50s that UFO images are projections of the collective unconscious. Like if in antiquity a person saw a shining angel in the sky, today he will see an alien ship there. The only difference is in the cultural interpretation, but the archetype is the same. Contact with something higher. But there are those who have gone further. Since the 70s, real UFO religions have begun to appear in the world. For example, the movement of Rael, the founder of the Temple of the Elohim. He claimed that he personally met aliens and even visited their planet. And there are dozens of such movements. People sincerely believe that we are a product of genetic engineering created by an extraterrestrial civilization. Some are waiting for the second coming, some the return of their creators. Copper object. This mysterious artifact made from a single piece of copper alloy puzzles researchers and collectors. The object, rather crudely cast with visible defects, has a head in the shape of a rectangular prism which narrows on all sides to a sharp edge. The handle, smoothly rounded at the end, shows no traces of blows, which indicates that it was not used for striking in the usual sense. Interestingly, the edges of the head previously had parallel lines and scratches that have worn off over time. This may indicate repeated use of the artifact, possibly in the process of cutting, grinding, or scraping. The estimated dating of the artifact varies between 5,000 and 10,000 years, but the exact origin remains unclear. Some researchers hypothesize that this object could have been used for ritual purposes or as part of an unknown technological device. Alternative history proponents believe that such artifacts could have been part of ancient, highly advanced tools created using technology beyond the capabilities of ancient metallurgists. The four-eyed figurine. This mysterious figurine, known as the four-eyed, was found in what is now Serbia. The age of the artifact is estimated at over 7,000 years, making it one of the oldest finds associated with the pre-literate culture of the Balkans. The figurine depicts a humanoid with four eyes, or perhaps elements resembling a mask. There is a hypothesis that these 4 eyes are actually part of a mask or headdress, and the figurine itself could depict not a real creature, but a mythical or divine creature revered in the society of that time. There is even a bold suggestion that it could be something resembling a spacesuit, hinting at contact with something extraterrestrial. Although this, of course, remains in the realm of fantasy. Little is known about the purpose of the figurine. Perhaps it was used in rituals or was a symbol of a protector or patron. This artifact leaves more questions than answers and continues to stir debate among archaeologists and mystery lovers. The 4-eyed one is one of those rare artifacts that not only reveals fragments of the past to us, but also excites our imagination. Mystical stones of Jalisco. Piedras grabadas de Ojuelos de Jalisco are mysterious stones found in the Mexican state of Jalisco, carved with strange figures, scenes, and symbols. These stones have attracted the attention of researchers and UFO enthusiasts due to images that some believe indicate ancient civilizations had contact with extraterrestrial beings. The stones depict people interacting with alien-like figures as well as objects similar to modern ideas about UFOs. Proponents of the paleo-contact theory argue that these stones may be important evidence that ancient Jalisco cultures did encounter extraterrestrial beings, or at least perceive such contacts in their myths and legends. Despite their controversy and lack of scientific evidence, the stones continue to attract interest as a possible artifact that reflects the interaction of mythology and reality in ancient cultures. They still fascinate antiquarians, raising questions about the extent to which our ancestors could perceive or interpret unusual phenomena. Petrified soldiers. What would you think if I told you that a UFO was shot down in the USSR and 23 soldiers literally turned to stone? No, this is not an excerpt from science fiction. This is a fragment of a declassified CIA document that ended up in an archive after the collapse of the Soviet Union. The location is not specified. The time is the end of the 80s. Soviet troops conduct training exercises. A low-flying object similar to a disc-shaped ship appears in the sky. One salvo and it is shot down. The ship falls near a military unit. A few minutes later, 5 creatures emerge from it. Short, with disproportionately large heads and black eyes, they merge into a single object. A high-frequency buzz is heard, a flash, and everyone who was nearby is petrified. 2 survivors were standing in the shadows. Later, according to the report, the remains of the soldiers and the wreckage of the ship were delivered to a secret scientific base near Moscow. The researchers allegedly found out that the structure of the bodies resembles limestone. It's as if their molecules had been rewritten. Mainstream science would call this nonsense, of course. But the CIA document says it in black and white. If this is true, we are dealing with beings with technologies beyond our understanding. UFOs are not the 20th century. Ribbiters and bioducts. If it seems that the sound anomalies associated with marine UFOs were recorded only by American sailors, then this is not so. Soviet submariners also encountered similar mysterious phenomena. In the 1970s, the crews of Soviet nuclear submarines detected strange sounds reminiscent of the croaking of frogs, which quickly spread in the waters of the North Atlantic, especially in areas controlled by NATO. These sounds were so unusual that they became the subject of numerous discussions and hypotheses. The sounds recorded by the acoustics of Soviet submarines almost always accompanied them and moved at an amazing speed, up to 150 knots. However, active sonar did not record any objects that could be the source of these noises. It was assumed that these sounds came from something too small to detect or were even living creatures. For several years, scientists tried to figure out the nature of these strange ribbiters, putting forward various theories, from unexplored phenomena occurring in submarine nuclear reactors to vibrations at the boundary of water layers with different temperatures and salinities. However, the Soviet Academy of Sciences put forward a more likely explanation. The sounds were biological in nature and could come from whales or unknown deep-sea mollusks. Submariners, in turn, did not agree with this, believing that the ribbiters were too different from any known sea creatures. Over time, a more realistic version appeared, proposed by skeptics. According to this theory, the submariners mistook the sounds of active buoys dropped from NATO anti-submarine aircraft for the ribitting. These devices, equipped with water-filled power sources, could produce noises similar to croaking. This version explains why ribbiters were most often recorded in areas of active NATO patrols and why this anomaly disappeared after the collapse of the USSR. Sailors of the Royal Navy of Great Britain, in turn, recorded similar noises, which they called bioducts, from the English onomatopoeia of quacking. These sounds were recorded in the waters around Australia, where in the 1960s, the most important nuclear testing grounds for the British fleet were located. Since patrols in these waters by the USSR or the USA were unlikely, the British also initially associated these sounds with marine life. It took scientists more than 50 years to establish the source of the bioducts. It turned out that the strange sounds are made by southern minke whales, whales that, before a deep dive, unexpectedly make this sound. Supernatural destruction of Mohenjodaro. In 1922, an officer from the Archaeological Survey of India, along with a Buddhist monk, went to the area, which turned out to be a religious monument. Instead of mounds of mud and stones, an entire Bronze Age city with a grid of streets, complex drainage systems, and flush toilets was discovered in Sindh, modern-day Pakistan. The city was part of the Harappan civilization, which reached its peak 5,000 years ago and ceased to exist around 1900 BC. The Mound of the Dead is the legacy of one of the oldest civilizations. The inhabitants of Mohenjo-Daro were in no way inferior to Egypt and ancient Mesopotamia. Once upon a time, this region was inhabited by about 35,000 people, but archaeologists managed to find only 43 skeletons that have survived to this day. The city's disappearance was mysterious, but in 1977, a British researcher discovered evidence suggesting it was caused by a massive explosion. Melted rocks and calcified skeletons suggest that the inhabitants of Mohenjo-Daro died instantly. In 2014, a doctor of mineralogy conducted a series of analyses and tests which suggests a connection between the Harappan civilization and aliens. This is indicated not only by the high level of development of the local residents, but also by the fact that they burned at a temperature of several thousand degrees. There are no volcanoes here, and the technology to reach such temperatures did not exist. What aliens did the ancients see? When people say aliens, they usually imagine gray humanoids with big eyes. But in ancient texts, frescoes, and myths, the images are completely different. These are fiery chariots, bird people, shining gods who came from the sky. They are not always strangers. Sometimes they are our creators, sometimes mentors, and sometimes punishing forces, wiping civilizations off the face of the earth. The Sumerians had the Anunnaki, the Dogon, the Nomo from the planet Sirius. The Hindus had gods who flew on Vimanas. The Mayans had Quetzalcoatl, a feathered god who came from the east, promising to return. All of them are described as higher beings who came from there and went somewhere. A coincidence? Or did each ancient civilization have contact, but with different manifestations of the same mind? Perhaps these are not just aliens in a flying saucer, but something much more complex. Intelligence that manifests itself in the way that the one who is watching is ready to perceive it. Manoan snake goddess. The most famous symbol of the Manoan civilization remains a mystery. One of the most recognizable symbols of all Manoan culture is the snake goddess, yet archaeologists still know little about her. Given her popularity, you might think that scientists would have a good understanding of this artifact by now. But since her discovery in 1903, there has been ongoing debate about who or what she represents. Dating to around 1600 BC, this faience figurine is rare in Minoan art, making it even more mysterious. Some archaeologists believe that she represents a goddess who is the patron of animals, while others believe that the woman depicted on the figurine has nothing to do with snakes at all. It is believed that the snakes in her hands are actually ropes, and that the statue itself was significantly restored by Arthur Evans, which has led to many misconceptions and misinterpretations. Bas-reliefs of Nukuhiva. On the island of Nukuhiva, part of the Marquesas Islands archipelago in French Polynesia, archaeologists are amazed by mysterious statues. The bas-reliefs and sculptures depict strange creatures reminiscent of gray aliens. Their bodies are human and their heads are like reptiles, with huge round eyes and low-set mouths. Who created these statues and why is unknown. The modern natives of the island know nothing about the origin of the sculptures and believe that they depict the ancient god Ono, who, according to their beliefs, created the world. When Europeans discovered the island in the 16th century, it was inhabited by savage gatherers famous for their cannibalism. However, the connection between the current inhabitants and those who created the mysterious statues has been lost. Archaeologists assume that these sculptures are at least 150,000 years old. Some believe that they depict priests in ritual masks, but these masks look too unusual to be simply part of Earth culture. Conspiracy theorists are convinced that Nukuhiva was once home to an alien colony. They believe that the statues depict human-alien hybrids and that the sculptures themselves are the result of ancient experiments. UFOs and fakes. One of the most sensational stories is the so-called autopsy of the Roswell alien. That very video where a strange creature with a huge head lies on the table and doctors pull something out of it. Then in the 90s, the video was shown on television to millions of people. Almost everyone believed it, but then it turned out it was staged. The creator of the video, Ray Santilli, later admitted, yes, the film is a recreation and the real film was allegedly lost. But he still claims that he saw the original and the footage matches what was shown to the CIA employees. And here's what's interesting. Even after admitting to the fake, people continued to believe it. Moreover, this fragment is now being sold as an NFT for $1 million. What is all this for? What does a fake offer? And it offers the main thing: noise, attention, faith, money. The more noise, the harder it is to distinguish the truth. The easier it is to replace reality with speculation. And here's the question: if even lies work to strengthen faith, who and why blurs the lines between facts and fakes? Scientists melt 46,000-year-old ice. Scientists have made a stunning discovery by reviving an ancient nematode that was frozen in Siberia for 46,000 years. The microscopic worm, identified as Panagrolamus colimensis, was found 40 meters underground where it had been dormant since the earliest cave paintings were made. After being thawed, the nematode came back to life, began feeding on bacteria in the lab and reproducing asexually, then leaving a new generation for further study. The nematode's ability to survive in extreme conditions rivals better-known species such as Caenorhabditis elegans, which can survive desiccation and produce a sugar called trehalose that protects against dehydration. This discovery could open up new horizons in understanding biological processes of survival and evolution, suggesting that species can survive in extreme conditions for thousands of years and even revive after a long period of dormancy. If scientists can implant the abilities of these living creatures into humans, we will actually be able to travel in time, since humanity will be able to put people into a state of suspended animation and awaken them in the distant future after tens, hundreds, or thousands of years. Mystical petroglyphs. The distance from Egypt to Australia is 12,500 kilometers. However, as archaeological discoveries show, this distance was easily surmountable for ancient man. The Gosford glyphs are mysterious petroglyphs discovered in a rocky area near the city of Gosford in Australia. These images on the stone amazed researchers with their similarity to ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. The glyphs depict scenes and symbols that indicate that these images may be indicative of possible contact between ancient Australian tribes and extraterrestrial beings, or even ancient Egyptian travels to Australia. Supporters of the paleo-contact theory claim that these glyphs may be evidence that in the distant past there were interactions between various ancient cultures or even with extraterrestrial civilizations. However, here too, skeptics come in and point out many inconsistencies and believe that the glyphs could have been created in the modern era, perhaps as a hoax, or are the work of local aborigines who used symbols similar to Egyptian ones. The question of the origin and authenticity of the Gosford glyphs remains open. At the moment, there is no convincing evidence confirming their antiquity or connection with extraterrestrial civilizations, which makes this find one of the most mysterious archaeological secrets of Australia. London Hammer. In 1936, an unusual discovery was made in Texas that became the subject of heated debate among scientists and ufologists. The discovered artifact, known as the London Hammer, was sealed inside a piece of fossilized limestone, which is estimated to be millions of years old. This led to speculation that the hammer could have belonged to an advanced ancient civilization and perhaps even been of extraterrestrial origin. Proponents of the paleo-contact theory and alternative history believe that the London hammer is evidence of the existence of an unknown civilization that possessed advanced technology long before the emergence of known cultures. They argue that such an artifact could not have accidentally ended up in such ancient rocks. However, there is also a scientific explanation that the hammer could have ended up in the limestone much later than its formation. According to them, the age of the fossil does not necessarily indicate the age of the artifact, and it is possible that we are talking about a later inclusion of the hammer in the sedimentary rock. To this day, the London hammer remains one of those mysteries that continue to excite minds and provoke debates about the origins of humanity and its history. And what do you think? Could our ancestors really contact extraterrestrial beings, or are all these discoveries just part of a hoax and were created in our time? Military abductions and secret bases. Thousands of stories, hundreds of memoirs, and they all say the same thing: contact has already taken place, but not in front of the world, not live. It happened in the shadows, under the heading Top Secret. One of the most discussed cases is the story of Charles James Hall, a U.S. Air Force veteran who served at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. He claims that he worked side by side with aliens, whites, grays, and even Nordics, tall humanoids similar to people. According to him, whites could live up to 700 years, and there was contact, officially, at the level of technology exchange. According to another version, the U.S. authorities allowed aliens to temporarily base themselves on Earth, allegedly for the sake of technology exchange. A deal in the style of the Cold War: you to us, we to you. But what exactly did people give? Genetic material, permission to abduct? Yes, abduct. In the 60s and 70s, a wave of stories erupted in the US and Europe about night visits, checks, implants, and mysterious dreams that left scars and fragments of memories. Many of the abductees were not fanatics or ufologists. They were doctors, soldiers, engineers, people who suddenly knew too much. Today, these stories are ridiculed or ignored. But one fact remains: the amount of evidence is too great to simply be attributed to imagination. Alien visitors in Egypt. Recent archaeological excavations in Egypt have led to a sensational discovery that has attracted the attention of the entire world. Archaeologists have found artifacts in the Giza Plateau area that, according to some scientists, may be evidence that aliens visited Earth 5,000 years ago. It all started with excavations in a recently opened tomb dating back to the Old Kingdom of Egypt. Among the items found, metal plates with mysterious symbols and images of flying objects that resembled modern UFOs stood out. An analysis of the artifacts showed that they were covered in writing in an unknown language. Some scientists suggest that this could be a message from aliens, which the ancient Egyptians could have perceived as contact with another civilization. Linguists are already working to decipher these symbols, but the results remain unclear. Attention was also drawn to the images of unidentified flying objects on the plates, which, according to ufologists, could be a diagram of an alien ship. It seems to me that so far the researchers have made a lot of hasty conclusions, and most likely the interpretation of these plates will be more down to earth. Therefore, it is better to wait until the study of these artifacts is completed and find out what symbols are depicted and why they were there. Indian airplanes. Amazing artifacts known as Indian airplanes have been found in Mexico and South America. These miniature gold figures, dating back hundreds, perhaps thousands of years, are striking in their detail. At first glance, they are toys, but their shape is too reminiscent of modern aircraft such as space shuttles or airplanes. Scientists were especially drawn to the tail rudders, symmetrical notches on the wings, and other elements that would have no practical use in a toy. The question arises, what was the basis for creating these figures? The only plausible explanation is that the craftsmen copied what they saw. Perhaps these artifacts are a reflection of real events when the inhabitants of ancient America observed the flights of mysterious devices. Some researchers associate these finds with theories about ancient astronauts, claiming that aliens, the Anunnaki or representatives of another civilization, visited Earth and left their traces. The mystery of these little planes is enhanced by another fact. Modern engineers have been able to create models based on these artifacts that, with the addition of an engine, are actually capable of flying. Is this a coincidence, an ancient myth, or evidence of technology that came from other planets? Pyramid on the site of a volcano. The Great Pyramid at the Mayan site of San Andres was built in response to the eruption of the Tierra Blanca Joven volcano in the Lago Ilopango caldera. San Andres, located in the Zapotecan Valley in the department of La Libertad, El Salvador, was founded around 900 BC as an agricultural center that became the capital of the Mayan state between 600 and 900 AD. The eruption of Tierra Blanca Joven, which occurred around 539 AD, was one of the largest volcanic events in history, ejecting about 43.7 cubic kilometers of volcanic material. It caused significant climate change and devastated an area with a radius of up to 100 kilometers. Dr. Akira Ichikawa of the University of Colorado Boulder noted that due to the scale of the disaster, many settlements were abandoned and it took a long time to rebuild them. However, research in San Andres, just 40 kilometers from Lago Ilopango, has shown that construction began several years after the eruption. The start of construction of the La Campana Pyramid dates back to just 30 years after the eruption, and its completion took about 80 years. The pyramid, 7 meters high and with a volume of 23,000 cubic meters, was the largest structure in the valley. Dr. Ichikawa suggests that the pyramid was built using volcanic ash as a material and had religious significance associated with the worship of volcanoes in order to protect against future eruptions. The mystery of the Antarctic monolith. In 2020, in a remote part of Antarctica, at a depth of more than 2 kilometers, researchers discovered a mysterious object which was named the Antarctic monolith. This object, which is a rectangular stone slab about 3 meters high and 1.5 meters wide, was found using sub-ice radar used to map the landscape under the ice sheet. The strangest thing began when scientists began to study the monolith. The surface of the stone was covered with complex geometric patterns and petroglyphs that were strangely similar to ancient symbols found in different parts of the world, including South America, Africa, and Asia. Analysis of the material showed that the stone has no analogs among the known rocks of Antarctica, which means that it came here from another place. In addition, the monolith had unusual magnetic properties. Instruments recorded a weak but constant magnetic field around it. Near the monolith, charred remains of organic material were found that scientists believe could be ancient plants or even remains of living creatures that lived millions of years ago. These organic materials trapped in ice could provide unique information about the ancient ecosystem of Antarctica when it was part of the supercontinent Gondwana. Some researchers suggest that this could be the trace of an advanced civilization that existed long before humans appeared. Others claim that it is potential evidence of contact with extraterrestrial beings. UFOs of the Third Reich. If the whole conversation about ancient UFOs seems too mythical, then this story is closer to our time and much more frightening, because we will talk about technologies that were allegedly developed in Nazi Germany in the last years of the war, and about the secret that neither the Allies nor history could take away. The Nazis really did create incredible things, from the first ballistic missiles to jet aircraft. But there is a separate layer of theories according to which flying machines of unimaginable shape and power were developed in the hidden bunkers of the Reich. They are called Haunebu, Vril, and the most mysterious of them, Die Glocke, the bell. The bell is not just technology, it is a legend surrounded by rumors, disappearances, and strange deaths. According to rumors, the object was a metal machine about 4 meters high, shaped like a bell, which could distort space and time, an anti-gravity engine based on some black energy from which the project's employees died. Some claim that Die Glocke disappeared along with the SS elites who went to Antarctica to a mysterious zone called New Swabia. There, in the inaccessible icy depths, a base was allegedly built, from where a new era began. According to other versions, the bell was found by the Americans and transported to the United States, hence the strange leaps in technology after 1945. It is hard to believe until you start looking at memoirs, classified documents, and strange activity in the Antarctic region in the late 40s. Some even link it to Operation High Jump, the largest polar expedition of the U.S. military, the purpose of which was officially research, but according to unofficial data, the interception of surviving Nazis with UFO technology. Historians, of course, deny all this, but the question remains, where did dozens of scientists, engineers, and prototypes disappear to? Why is there so little information about this, even after almost 80 years? UFO landing pad. Gary Dixon, 62, from Flint, Wales, was driving to Llangollen when he was caught by a 15-meter white circular disc slowly rotating on the surface of the River Dee in Denbighshire. He was so intrigued by this unusual object that he decided to walk a few kilometers to study it closer. The disc was perfectly round and rotated counterclockwise, creating the impression of a mysterious natural phenomenon. Gary, who was planning to spend a winter day in Llangollen, was so fascinated by what he saw that he stayed to watch it for about half an hour. According to his observations, the disc made one rotation per hour. Ice discs, as it turns out, are not uncommon. This natural phenomenon is observed all over the world, from Russia and China to Scandinavia and North America. The first recorded sighting of an ice disk was in 1895 in the USA on the Mianus River in Connecticut. In recent years, such natural formations have attracted attention due to their impressive size. For example, in January 2019, a 100-meter wide ice disk was discovered on the Presumpscot River in Maine. But an even more impressive case occurred in Canada, where a giant rotating disk with a diameter of 200 meters was spotted on the Taltson River, which was captured by satellite lenses. These unique ice formations have received different names: ice circles, frying pans, and carousels. Alien skulls. A few years ago, American and European media were filled with sensational stories about the discovery of alien skulls in a cave in Russia. These strange skulls, resembling something clearly non-human, caused a lot of controversy. Many assumed that they could belong to aliens or creatures unknown to science. However, journalists soon declared that the whole story was a hoax, and it quickly disappeared from the headlines. These skulls could have been part of an ancient ritual or simply the altered remains of animals whose bones had acquired unusual shapes. But it is interesting to imagine what it must have felt like to discover them for the first time in a dark, cold cave. It is one thing to see them in a photograph, and quite another to hold this mysterious artifact in your hands, causing a feeling of both fear and curiosity. Even though this discovery turned out to be a hoax, it remains an interesting reminder of how myths and facts can intertwine to create amazing stories. Nomaly figures. One of the most mysterious artifacts of the African continent is the Nomaly figures found in Sierra Leone, West Africa. These ancient sculptures, carved from stone, depict strange creatures with disproportionately large heads, bulging eyes, and other unusual features that are not typical of human anatomy. Some of them also depict scenes that can be interpreted as mythological or religious. The unique shapes and features of these figures have attracted the attention of not only archaeologists, but also supporters of theories about ancient astronauts. Some researchers believe that the Nomaly figures may represent images of extraterrestrial beings that may have been in contact with the ancient inhabitants of the region. According to them, the strange proportions and features of the figures may indicate that they were created under the impression of real creatures of extraterrestrial origin. This theory, although not scientifically proven, adds an aura of mystery to the Nomaly figurines and attracts the attention of ufologists and lovers of mysticism. Official science considers the Nomaly figurines to be religious or ritual objects, and it is believed that these artifacts were most likely used in ancient rites or rituals associated with the worship of gods or spirits, since they could symbolize certain mythological characters. As I have already told you before, when archaeologists or historians cannot explain the origin of an artifact, it necessarily becomes an object of religious significance. Interestingly, the Nomaly figurines are often found deep in the ground, sometimes together with other ancient artifacts, various iron objects or weapons, which complicates the task of dating them and establishing their cultural context. Some finds indicate that these artifacts could have existed in very ancient times, perhaps long before the appearance of known civilizations in this region. Friendship between the inhabitants of ancient Egypt and aliens. The topic of the connection between ancient Egypt and UFOs is a subject of interest to many researchers and paranormal enthusiasts. Many facts remain speculation, but there are also details that defy logical explanation. In some temples and pyramids, you can find drawings reminiscent of modern ideas about UFOs. The most famous example is the image on the walls of the Temple of Ramesses II at Abu Simbel. On one of the walls, researchers found an image of a flying saucer with a round shape and strange aerodynamic characteristics. Other evidence includes numerous papyrus records about UFOs. One of them is translated as follows: "And a circle of fire appeared in the sky. It had no head, but a terrible stench came out of its mouth. Its body was huge. It was voiceless. A little scary, isn't it? Similar records belong to a chronicler who lived 3,500 years ago. He claimed that the sky was covered with fiery discs, but the pharaoh did not chicken out and did not allow the soldiers to flee, after which the flying objects disappeared in an instant. Concepts such as winged shields and discs of fire appear repeatedly in ancient Egyptian written religious sources. Iron was practically unmined in ancient Egypt and was a rare metal, but writings often mention iron thrones, scepters, and clothing intended for the pharaoh. The sun god was dressed in metal and sat on a throne of iron and fire, which also sounds quite strange. The Abydos hieroglyphs discovered in the hall of the funeral temple of Pharaoh Seti I deserve special attention. Here, ufologists noticed a helicopter, a submarine, a glider, and an airship. For a long time, photographs of the find were considered falsified, but soon their authenticity was confirmed. There were suggestions that the inhabitants of ancient Egypt were able to look into the future, while other scientists believed that aliens traveled in time and simply told them about the events of the 20th century. Skeptics categorically deny such ideas, believing that the images were the result of the superposition of two hieroglyphic inscriptions, which suffered destruction of the plaster between them. There is another, no less amazing drawing where a flying disc drops an aerial bomb, but critics here have their own logical explanation. Monolith in the middle of the desert. In November 2020, in the Red Rock Desert of southern Utah, a helicopter crew and biologists were counting livestock when they noticed something startling. Approaching the mysterious object, they discovered a large, shiny silver object located in a canyon inaccessible to humans. Utah authorities tried to keep the discovery a secret, but soon data about it was leaked on social networks. People struck by the object called it the Utah Monolith, a remnant of aliens. A mysterious metal monument that found itself in the middle of the desert has become the subject of fantasies and the rich imagination of people who believe in the existence of more intelligent civilizations living on other planets. It was assumed that this monolith was left by an alien spaceship so that they could contact us. Many were convinced that the monolith was built from alien building materials. The materials have unique properties that are not found in nature on our planet. The metal and ceramic composite is capable of absorbing radar waves. It is known that alien ships with anti-gravity properties can have a similar alloy. Some believe that the US government not only knows about these materials, but is also using the remains of alien ships to create the next generation of weapons. Experts carefully checked the monolith to determine the type of metal and also tried to find cavities in the mysterious object. Despite all the theories and speculation on social networks, scientists are convinced that the monolith was created by man and perhaps placed in the canyon only to become a manifestation of the beauty of a work of art. We've been under surveillance for a long time. If we're looking for signals, it's logical to assume that someone might be looking for us too, but what if they've already found us? In 2020, a group of astronomers published a study that changed the very formulation of the question. Scientists from Cornell University studied the Earth's neighborhoods and identified 1,004 star systems from which we can watch our planet pass across the sun's disk. That is, see the Earth the way we see exoplanets. Their main conclusion is simple. If there is intelligent life in one of these systems, they might know right now that we're here. Moreover, 508 of these star systems are located in such a way that the Earth would be visible against the sun for more than 10 hours at a time, enough to notice an atmosphere with oxygen, methane, and, perhaps, signs of life. They could have spotted us thousands of years ago, watched, waited, or maybe they've already sent a signal that's still on its way. The SETI project is a global network of radio telescopes tracking anomalies and signals from the depths of space. We have listened to thousands of systems, but so far, silence. Modern scientists are cautious but not skeptical. No one laughs at those who say maybe we are not alone, because the number of habitable planets is billions. Alien ship fragments in the ocean. A renowned Harvard University astrophysicist, Avi Loeb, who gained popularity for his UFO research and possible contacts with aliens, reported the possible discovery of alien ship fragments on the ocean floor. Loeb became famous for his theory about the unusual nature of the asteroid Oumuamua, which accelerated and deviated from the expected trajectory for no apparent reason in 2017, which led the scientists to suggest its artificial origin. Recently, Loeb drew attention to a meteorite that fell into the Pacific Ocean in 2014. The object, known as IM-1, was distinguished by an unusual speed of movement. The scientist went to the site of its fall and, together with his team, extracted fragments from a depth of 1,700 meters. As a result, they discovered about 50 small balls consisting of iron, magnesium, and titanium, about 0.3 millimeters in size. Loeb and his colleagues suggest that these spherules may be evidence of an alien spacecraft crash landing on Earth. However, many scientists are skeptical of his hypothesis, arguing that such fragments with such a composition may be the result of natural processes that occur when meteorites fall into the atmosphere and onto the ocean floor. Sabus disk. This is one of the most mysterious artifacts of ancient Egypt found in the tomb of Sabu, a descendant of Pharaoh Ajib. It is at least 5,000 years old, but its true purpose remains a mystery. At first glance, it is a stone disc with 3 curved petals, but the details make one wonder. The thickness in some places reaches only 1.5 millimeters, which indicates incredible precision of manufacture. Given the level of technology of that time, many wonder, how was this possible? Scientists hypothesize that the disc could have been part of a ritual or a decorative element, but there are other theories that go beyond the usual. Some researchers believe that the Sabu disc could have been a copy of a device left by guests from the sky, a highly developed civilization that visited Earth in ancient times. The structure and shape of the artifact resemble modern aerodynamic devices or even elements of complex mechanisms. The Egyptians may have considered this object sacred and tried to reproduce something they saw but did not understand. Some believe that the Sabu disc is the key to unraveling the interaction of ancient civilizations with extraterrestrial intelligence. For now, these are just guesses, but the mystical aura surrounding this artifact continues to excite minds and invites us to delve into the secrets of the past. Lost fortress in the Sahara. In the 17th century, among the endless sands of the Sahara, a mysterious ancient fortress was discovered. Scientists who examined the find were stunned by its complex architecture and the unusual technologies that were thought to have been used in its construction. According to the records of that time, the fortress had unique features: massive walls carved from an unknown but incredibly durable material, and complex water systems, the level of which was nothing like it in the known history of mankind at that time. This gave rise to speculation that it could have been built by representatives of an unknown, highly developed civilization, or even with the help of alien technology. But before scientists could study and document this amazing find in detail, the fortress was again buried under thick sand due to a sudden storm. Since then, its exact location has remained a mystery. Despite many expeditions trying to find the fortress, it was never discovered again. This case has attracted the attention of many researchers and mystery lovers. One can only guess what secrets this lost fortress holds. Could it really have been created using technology superior to our own, or is it proof of the existence of a forgotten ancient civilization? Sphinx from Mars. The Sphinx from Mars was discovered in 1976 during archaeological excavations in Egypt. This unique figurine, only 10 centimeters high, has amazed scientists with its strange resemblance to the famous Martian Sphinx, depicted in photographs taken by the Viking 1 space probe. The figurine was found in a tomb dated to the 3rd dynasty of the pharaohs, and it was part of an ancient collection of artifacts. It was engraved with symbols and signs that did not look like traditional Egyptian hieroglyphs and which have not yet been deciphered. Many scientists and UFO researchers began to speculate that the figurine could be evidence of contact between the ancient Egyptians and extraterrestrial civilizations. According to some theories, the Sphinx from Mars was a kind of key or device for communicating with cosmic beings. Ancient texts found near the artifact spoke of gods from heaven who supposedly visited Earth in ancient times. There is a version that it was these gods who gave the figurine to the pharaohs. The Sphinx from Mars continues to attract the attention of scientists and paranormal enthusiasts. Some consider it to be irrefutable proof of the existence of extraterrestrial life, while skeptics argue that this is just a coincidence and an interesting archaeological artifact. Mysterious accessory from the future. Archaeologists have discovered wall carvings depicting objects similar to modern handbags. Some of these images are about 12,000 years old. The earliest were found in Turkey in the ruins of the megalithic temple of Göbekli Tepe, where strange images are engraved on the columns of the ancient temple. Similar motifs have been discovered in Mexico, Iraq, and South America, raising many questions about the possible use of such objects by ancient civilizations. Although the images resemble handbags or clutches, experts believe the ancient ruins are more likely to depict baskets. Some believe that the concept of a handbag may have been invented by ancient civilizations. The first modern bag appeared in 1841 in England, created by Samuel Parkinson. The problem is that the Göbekli Tepe temple was built in 9000 BC, and its builders could hardly have known about such an accessory. Another ancient example of a handbag was found in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs written about 5,000 years ago, where the gods hold a small square object symbolizing prosperity. Archaeologists have indeed found remains of baskets and tool bags used by the ancient Egyptians, but they cannot yet say for sure what is depicted in the hieroglyphs. Similar discoveries were made in Iraq, among the ruins of an Assyrian palace built between 883 and 859 BC, which depicts a genie with wings holding what appears to be a handbag. Historian David Miano believes that these figures, called Apkallu, were minor deities who carried water buckets made from sacred date palms rather than purses. Ancient buckets similar to the engravings were actually found in Iraq. Similar motifs have also been found in Mexico among Toltec ruins, where giant statues hold objects resembling handbags. These statues were created around 750 AD. Burning UFO over Canada. 2018 Quebec. While on a walk and enjoying their vacation, the family noticed a strange object in the sky and decided to film it. An inexplicably shaped object was slowly rotating, glowing with green and bright red lights. Casual spectators were amazed, realizing that they had witnessed something truly strange and unusual. At first glance, it might seem that this is a spaceship burning fuel while gaining altitude. Canada is one of the few countries that officially records UFO data. As they collect data, they publish surprising findings and images, causing skeptics to doubt that humanity is the only superior race in the universe. The object caught in the video has no visible means of movement and exhibits anti-gravity properties, hovering in the air for some time. The absence of wings and exhaust gases proves that this is not an aircraft. Some skeptics tried to justify this with natural phenomena as an optical illusion, but on this day the weather was beautiful and it was clearly noticeable that this object was three-dimensional. A close guess suggests that the object was a hot air balloon with a mirror surface, but is this true? Perhaps we are simply denying the obvious, afraid to admit that aliens exist and they are already among us? A message in DNA. We send radio signals into space, probe distant stars, build giant antennas in the hope that someone will answer. But maybe the answer has already been here all this time, not somewhere in the sky, but inside us. In 2013, two Kazakh scientists, Vladimir Sherbak and Maxim Makakov, put forward an idea that sends shivers down your spine. They were studying the structure of DNA and noticed something strange, repeating numerical patterns. Too neat, too orderly. One number was especially common, 37, and it did not appear by chance but in key places in the genetic code, as if someone had left a signature right inside us. Their hypothesis? What if DNA is not just a manual for assembling a person, but also a time capsule, a message, ultra-persistent, transmitted for millions of years, a message from those who were here before us, or who created us? Sound crazy? Maybe, but we do the same thing ourselves. We send the golden disc on the Voyagers, we put messages in bottles. We dream of being found. Why couldn't someone do the same? Now imagine, maybe we are that bottle, only we haven't learned to read what's written on it yet. Buddha wheels and devil's carousels. Marine bioluminescence, a phenomenon in which some marine life emits light, has been known for a long time. For example, some types of plankton are capable of creating light bright enough to be noticed by the human eye. This phenomenon is often associated with observations of a glow on the surface of the water or just below it. However, in addition to scientific explanations, there are also more mystical stories about mysterious circles on the water. These glowing rings are called Buddha wheels or devil's carousels. Interestingly, the former ones, according to one version, were so named by Eastern sailors and the latter by Europeans. ones. The Chinese considered such phenomena to be favorable omens, while Europeans, in particular Christians, perceived them as a bad omen. Note how people in the West and East observing the same natural phenomenon interpret it completely oppositely. At the same time, despite the popularity of these stories, there is not a single official documented evidence of such phenomena. Perhaps the mysterious glowing circles are associated with marine plankton, which creates a bright glow in the darkness of the ocean. It is also worth noting that such stories about Buddha wheels and devil's carousels are often reflected in folklore, but so far remain only part of myths and legends, not confirmed by factual data. Teayawanako Cave. In the Teayawanako area, one of the most ancient and mysterious archaeological complexes in Bolivia, a cave was discovered with strange creatures depicted on its walls. These figures have large heads and eyes, which resembles the images of aliens that are widespread in modern culture. The discovered images immediately attracted the attention of archaeologists from all over the world. Some researchers have suggested that these images may reflect the myths and beliefs of the ancient cultures of the region, associating them with divine or supernatural beings. In the ancient civilizations of South America, images of anthropomorphic creatures with exaggerated features of body parts are often found, which could symbolize their special role and status in mythology. And then supporters of the theory of paleocontact put forward their hypothesis that these images may be evidence of real contacts with extraterrestrial beings who visited the Earth in ancient times. Interestingly, there are similar images and figurines all over the world that have many coincidences. Did humanity really encounter something extraterrestrial in ancient times? What do you think? Write your opinion in the comments below the video. UFO in Roswell, the beginning of a government conspiracy. On June 24, 1947, a pilot was flying over the Cascade Mountains of Washington state while searching for a crashed military plane. At some point, he noticed 9 crescent-shaped objects flying in formation at an altitude of more than 3 kilometers at a speed of 1,900 kilometers per hour, which at that time seemed unrealistic. Arnold Kenneth was the first to describe unidentified flying objects as saucers. The media learned about this and coined the phrase "flying saucer," which later became an integral part of the main modern mystery of mankind. 2 weeks later, on July 7, 1947, a rancher in Roswell contacted the sheriff reporting strange debris. He had heard a story about flying saucers and suggested that one of them might have crashed during a recent storm. After receiving the debris, the sheriff turned it over to the Army Air Base. Soon, the military arrived at the ranch, which began a series of stunning events. Within 24 hours, the authorities completely changed their attitude towards the discovery, saying that the journalists had made a mistake and that what happened had nothing to do with a UFO. In 1978, the Roswell UFO crash became a popular topic again. The former military man admitted that the logical explanations were a cover-up and the photographs were staged. He claimed that the real wreckage was replaced to hide the existence of aliens. Those participating in the search knew for sure that it was an extraterrestrial spacecraft, but could not tell people about it. Curious scientists found several more retired military personnel, and they all confirmed the fact of the UFO crash. Skeptics believe that they lied for the sake of a fee, but no one has yet been able to refute or confirm that the US government hit a crashed alien spaceship. To believe in UFOs or not, everyone decides for themselves. Some facts of extraterrestrial civilization are still beyond doubt, forcing us to accept a new reality. At the same time, a Pentagon UFO hunter and former head of the Anomalous Phenomena Investigations Office gave an interview that cannot be ignored. Sean Kirkpatrick admitted that his office has not found any real evidence regarding alien origins. In addition, he denies government conspiracies to hide evidence of the existence of aliens. At the same time, U.S. Air Force veteran David Grush gave a scandalous interview confirming that he participated in hiding the bodies of aliens and extraterrestrial vehicles. Charles Fort and the hunt for anomalies. When you look up at the sky and see something strange, you are not alone. 100 years ago, there was a man who dedicated his life to such moments. His name was Charles Fort. He did not look for evidence, he collected oddities, anything that did not fit into science. Rains of fish, flashes of light in the sky, disappearances of people, reports of mysterious objects. He did not explain, he just wrote down. Because he knew, sometimes the facts themselves are more terrible than any theory. Fort was someone who did not believe in either science or religion because both ignored the inconvenient. And it is in these inconvenient that the most interesting lives. He said between facts and fantasy there is a zone where everything is possible. And this zone is real. We just do not know how to look there. His books were read secretly as if it were forbidden. His ideas inspired dozens of films and TV series, from The Twilight Zone to The X-Files. He was the first to show that anomalies are not stupidities, but a misunderstood part of reality. You don't have to believe. The main thing is not to close your eyes. Now his work is continued by millions. Every time someone writes on the internet, "I saw a glowing object, it hung in the sky and disappeared," this is Forteanism. A culture in which the strange is a reason to explore, not to reject. But there is a flip side. We increasingly doubt everything and less know what to believe. And this is no longer just a hunt for anomalies. It is already a symptom. Life in a meteorite. Researchers studying a meteorite found on the island of Sri Lanka have said that it is not just a rock fragment from outer space, but a potential artifact of extraterrestrial origin. The analysis revealed the presence of fossils of microscopic algae, which, according to scientists, may be evidence of the panspermia hypothesis, the idea that life is spread throughout the universe via asteroids and comets. These discoveries have attracted widespread interest as they could support the theory of the existence of life beyond Earth. However, the results have been criticized by the scientific community. Some experts argue that the fossils found are too similar to terrestrial microorganisms living in fresh water. The possibility of contamination of the meteorite by terrestrial life forms during its stay on the surface of the Earth also remains a serious argument against the hypothesis of extraterrestrial origin of the find. Fuente Magna Bowl. A mysterious artifact found near Lake Titicaca in Bolivia also interested archaeologists with its unusual image. The bowl, called Fuente Magna, is a large stone vessel with unusual inscriptions on its surface. These inscriptions struck researchers with their similarity to Sumerian cuneiform, one of the oldest writing systems that originated in Mesopotamia. The unusual nature of the inscriptions gave rise to theories about possible contacts between the ancient cultures of Mesopotamia and South America. Supporters of this hypothesis claim that the bowl may serve as evidence of the existence of unknown migration routes or even ancient sea voyages that connected these distant regions. However, skeptics point to a high probability of falsification. They argue that the bowl could have been created at a later period, perhaps even in the modern era, in order to cause a sensation. Around 150 years ago, it was very popular all over the world to create such objects to attract people to fairs and make money from gullible citizens. Despite this, the exact origin and meaning of the Fuente Magna bowl remain unsolved, continuing to arouse the interest of archaeologists and lovers of the mysteries of ancient history. When we hear the word UFO, the 20th century immediately pops into our heads. Roswell, movies, tinfoil hats. But the truth is that people saw unidentified objects long before the era of television and aviation. We have documented cases dating back to the times of ancient Rome. Chronicles recorded fiery shields, flying ships, strange creatures descending from the sky, and even abductions in the clouds. All this was recorded not by science fiction writers, but by historians, monks, and officials. In the 4th century AD, the Roman chronicler Julius Obsequent describes dozens of such cases in his book Liber Prodigiorum. Flaming spheres, glowing ships, and creatures descending from the sky were allegedly seen over Rome. At least this is how eyewitnesses perceived it. Pliny the Elder also mentions a mysterious burning shield that hovered over the city during the Second Punic War. And this is not an isolated case. Similar descriptions are found in the chronicles of Ireland, China, India. What was it? A coincidence in symbolism? A mass hallucination? Or did we really observe the same phenomenon? Just call it differently in different eras? Once upon a time, they were gods then, angels. Today, aliens. But the essence is probably the same. Eclipse battle. Imagine two kings who've been waging a bitter war for 5 years, losing their soldiers but seeing no end to the confrontation. And suddenly, when the sky, filled with the sounds of battle, darkens, a solar eclipse occurs. At this moment, the warriors on both sides freeze, lower their weapons, watching in amazement as a natural phenomenon eclipses human rage. The kings decide to declare a truce. This event became known as the Battle of the Eclipse, written about by the Greek historian Herodotus. In 585 BC, on the Halys River in Asia Minor, where the Lydians led by King Alyats and the Medes led by Cyaxares fought, an eclipse occurred that was predicted in advance. Historians believe that it was the Greek astronomer Thales of Miletus who predicted it. This eclipse, which was the first in history to be predicted by a human, has generated a lot of controversy. Predicting a solar eclipse is a difficult task. However, calculations have shown that the eclipse did indeed occur in 585, but not on Thales' supposed date of May 18, 584. Some believe that Thales could have used data from previous observations, but his accuracy is questionable, especially in light of the lack of astronomical instruments and records from that time. Historians also argue about the details of the battle. For example, Pliny only mentions the king of Lydia in his work, while the name of the Median ruler is questionable. In any case, despite these controversial points, the Battle of the Eclipse remains an important historical event. As a result of the eclipse, a truce was concluded, and the Halys River became the border between the two warring states. Indonesian Star Trek. In 1992, geologist Castillo made a discovery that still shocks today. In the province of Kapanga, Indonesia, he was exploring the Satan's Cave in the mountains and found an unusual stone. On its chip were engraved mysterious symbols that resembled a map of the Star Trek. The signs on the stone are strikingly similar to the images on the plaques sent into space by NASA with the Pioneer 10 and Pioneer 11 probes in the 1970s. The stone depicts a man and a woman holding hands, as well as the sun, stars, and lines resembling routes. Geologists claim that the age of the stone's processing is hundreds of thousands of years. This casts doubt on its terrestrial origin because at that time people, as is assumed, could not have had such knowledge. Conspiracy theorists suggest that aliens received a message from the Pioneer probe but miscalculated and missed the time, ending up on Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago. Perhaps they got stuck here and left their mark in the form of this stone. Another version says that the stone could have been created by a highly developed civilization that existed in Indonesia long before our era. The map depicts a star system with 1 star and 7 planets, an almost exact reproduction of the solar system. Modern scientists recognize 8 planets, but until recently, Neptune was considered an asteroid. Whoever the creators of the mysterious stone were, their knowledge of the stars remains a mystery, astonishing modern science. Discovery of the star Sirius. The Dogon tribe of Mali, Africa has long attracted the attention of researchers and anthropologists due to their unique and ancient knowledge of the star Sirius. This knowledge is amazing in its accuracy. The Dogon claim that Sirius is not just a bright star visible to the naked eye, but that it has a satellite, Sirius B, which is invisible without special equipment and was discovered by Western scientists only in 1862. According to Dogon mythology, their ancestors received this knowledge from mysterious creatures they call Nomo. These creatures, according to legend, came to Earth from Sirius and taught the Dogon astronomy, agriculture, and other important sciences. The information that the Dogon keep about Sirius is amazing in its accuracy. They knew that Sirius B is a small and extremely dense star, which is surprising for a people who did not have access to modern astronomical instruments. This knowledge has given rise to many hypotheses and theories about possible contact between the Dogon and an extraterrestrial civilization. Supporters of paleocontact are sure that the ancient Dogon could only have received such precise data about space from a highly developed extraterrestrial race. Some anthropologists and historians believe that the Dogon knowledge could have been acquired not from mythical creatures, but from European missionaries and explorers who visited Africa in the past. There are suggestions that the Dogon could have learned about Sirius B during interactions with scientists in the 19th or early 20th century and then integrated this information into their myths and legends. When it wasn't gods who came from heaven. There is a strange pattern in the history of humanity. Almost every religion begins with the appearance of something from heaven. Someone hears a voice, someone sees a light, and someone comes into contact with a shining being. Why is this so similar to modern descriptions of UFO encounters? Ufologist John Keel writes in his book Operation Trojan Horse that all these beings from the past are the same ultra-entities as today. They simply adapted to the culture of the era. Previously, angels, archangels, heavenly chariots. Today, humanoids in silver. The essence is the same. Keel claimed that they can heal, predict events, and cause mass visions. The same thing happened in the times of the Bible. Some of these contacts grew into entire movements and cults, like Raelianism, which directly claims that humanity was created by aliens. The founder of the sect, Claude Vorilhon, claimed to have encountered UFOs, visited another planet, and received instructions from there. So where is the line between religion, cult, and contact with non-human intelligence? Or maybe it is all the same thing, just explained in different words. Stationary underwater objects. There are many stationary anomalous objects hidden in the oceans that still remain a mystery to scientists. Even if we put aside myths such as the legends of Atlantis, the list of interesting finds is still impressive. One of the most famous is the Inagui Monument, located near the Ryukyu Islands, not far from the Japanese Yonaguni. These are stone structures located at a shallow depth that have regular geometric shapes. Despite the fact that most scientists consider them to be a natural geological formation, many researchers and pseudo-archaeologists are trying to prove that these stones are the result of human activity. Another mystery is the megalith found at the bottom of the Gulf of Pantelleria Vecchia in the Tunisian Strait. This is a huge stone, 12 meters long and weighing 15 tons, in which there are 3 round holes. Based on its structure, it is assumed that it was processed by man in the Mesolithic, about 15,000 years ago. However, rock analysis showed that its age could be much higher, more than 40,000 years, which casts doubt on its origin. The Cuban underwater city is another mysterious discovery made in 2001 off the west coast of Cuba. With the help of sonar, geometric structures resembling pyramids and rings consisting of granite blocks were discovered. These findings raised a lot of questions among researchers, as they could be both natural formations and the result of human activity. These and other objects remain the subject of active research and discussion because their origin can reveal a lot of unknown things about ancient civilizations and the nature of the ocean depths. Ceramic figurines from Mexico. In 1944, thousands of ceramic figurines were discovered in the Mexican city of Acámbaro, which have since sparked heated debate among scientists. These figurines depict humans, animals, and even dinosaurs, which has led to speculation about possible contact between ancient civilizations and dinosaurs, or the existence of a civilization with incredible knowledge of the ancient world. Some supporters of alternative theories even hypothesize extraterrestrial origins or influences. However, the authenticity of the Acámbaro figurines is seriously questioned by most scientists. Many researchers believe that these artifacts may be modern fakes created for attention-grabbing or commercial gain. The lack of reliable dating and archaeological context increases skepticism about their authenticity. Iraqi Ghost. Not long ago, a video published by the famous American ufologist and director Jeremy Corbell blew up the internet space. The so-called Iraqi ghost, shaped like a jellyfish, has caused heated discussion online and attracted the attention of both scientists and avid skeptics. The published recording shows how a ball-shaped object with hanging tentacles flies smoothly and without changing its speed over an American military base located in Iraq. The source claims that after this, the ghost sank into the pond and stayed there for 17 minutes, after which it took off sharply at an angle of 45 degrees relative to the ground, and having gained incredible speed, disappeared from visibility. Unfortunately, the footage only shows a flight over the base, but the soldiers did not notice the object, which indicates its silent movement. Another interesting feature is the change in color of the UFO, becoming gray, white, and then black. All this indicates a change in the temperature of an object that feels great both in water and on land. Scientists suggest that UFOs are the result of the activities of an underwater earthly civilization, about which humanity still knows nothing. Ufologists are convinced that this video confirms the existence of aliens using objects of extraterrestrial origin. Critics are convinced that the Iraqi ghost is hot air balloons flying close to each other. It is impossible to confirm or refute their statements, since the recording was not made while the object was immersed in water. It is noteworthy that this is not the first UFO that has the shape of a jellyfish. In 1977, the famous Petrozavodsk phenomenon occurred when 100 people saw an unidentified object resembling a sea monster. A similar object was spotted in Sao Paulo in 2020, causing shock among temperamental Brazilians. Separately, it is worth mentioning the fact that the recording was filmed in 2018, but the US government diligently hid this information, fearing public disclosure. Hundreds of witnesses, but only a few believe. We are used to thinking that all UFO contacts are stories of individuals. Someone saw something, someone thought it was there. But history knows of both mass observations and official investigations. For example, the Fatima visions in Portugal, 1917, tens of thousands of people saw the sun dancing in the sky, changing color and size. The church recognized it as a miracle, but ufologists think otherwise. The descriptions of the events are suspiciously reminiscent of UFO behavior, or the case in Knock, Ireland, the 19th century. People en masse observed how shining figures hanging in the air appeared near the church, and again, a religious explanation. But Jacques Vallée, a famous ufologist, cites these cases as typical examples of the influence of the external mind on the human psyche. He does not deny that the phenomena are real, he simply asks the question, why do they repeat themselves, but in different wrappings? If they saw the Virgin Mary before, today they see gray humanoids, and tomorrow maybe they will see something else. The bodies of extraterrestrial beings. Theories about the appearance of aliens vary. Some believe that they are similar to humans, but with differences, a different skin color or elements of the genome that resemble reptiles or plants. Such images are often found in literature and cinema. For example, in the movies about the Guardians of the Galaxy, aliens are depicted as furry or tree-like humanoids. The raccoon rocket and the bark-covered Groot became the embodiment of this idea. Other researchers and writers believe that it is pointless to build ideas about alien life based on earthly evolution. Polish writer Stanislaw Lem, in his novel Solaris, created a different approach. His alien intelligence is presented as an ocean capable of interacting with people through their memories, providing a chance to correct the past. This became a philosophical response to anthropocentrism in the depiction of aliens. There are also more sinister versions. Some believe that alien life forms may be parasites that use the human body as a habitat. A similar image was embodied in the film Venom, where an extraterrestrial symbiote used a human as a host. Not long ago, Mexican ufologist Jaime Maussan presented remains that, according to him, belong to ancient aliens. These humanoid-like creatures have three-fingered limbs, missing teeth, and unusual physical features. When X-rayed, rare metals such as cadmium and osmium, which are used today in satellite systems, were found in their bodies. An egg-like formation was found in one of the mummies, which further provoked mystery lovers. However, scientists are skeptical of these claims. Earlier, in 2017, Moissan already presented findings that turned out to be the remains of ancient children, not aliens. To confirm or refute the truth of the new claims, serious research will be needed. Until then, this discovery remains a subject of debate between ufologists and the scientific community. The world's greatest mystery. The underwater ruins of an ancient city estimated to be 10,000 years old have been discovered off the coast of the Japanese island of Yonaguni. This complex, reminiscent of a pyramid, a castle, temples, an arch, and a stadium, is connected by roads. In 2007, marine biologist Masaaki Kimura described the main structure as a monolithic step pyramid, 25 m high. He suggested that the structures were built by the Jomon people who lived on the islands 14,000 years ago. However, Professor Robert Schoch of Boston University expressed the opinion that the Yonaguni Monument is a natural geological formation. 37 years have passed since the first discovery of the Japanese Atlantis in 1986, but its origin is still shrouded in mystery. Kimura proposed the theory that it was part of the continent of Mu that was lost due to the disaster. He also found stone images, including an underwater Sphinx. Seismologist Toru Uchi from Kobe University supported Kimura's hypothesis. rejecting the assumption that the structures had a natural origin. However, Professor Schoch remains unconvinced, arguing that the structure is not artificial and its characteristics are the result of natural processes. So, the depths of the sea near Yonaguni continue to hold the mystery of these amazing structures, remaining the subject of discussion and research by scientists. How UFOs became a new religion. We live in a world where aliens are no longer science fiction, but almost a habit. Memes, movies, YouTube, Telegram channels, merch. Aliens are not just a topic. They are a cultural phenomenon that has long gone beyond ufology. But how did this happen? It all started in the 20th century, with books, rumors, and strange reports where miraculously surviving footage allegedly showed alien corpses, and classified sources surfaced with confessions about experiments in Area 51. Then there were talk shows, investigations, documentaries, scandals, and all of this ceased to be marginal. It became mainstream. For example, the fake footage of the autopsy of the alien from Roswell, a complete fake made in the 90s, collected millions of ratings. It was exposed. So what? This only strengthened the fans' faith. Aha, so there must be truth if they're trying so hard to hide it. Charles Fort, the father of this whole movement, said back at the beginning of the century, "Science rejects too much, and official explanations are not always the truth." His ideas inspired entire generations of anomaly hunters. He said, if strange things happen, it means we have the wrong picture of the world. Today, science, politics, religion, everything causes skepticism. But aliens? For some reason, they are believed, even more than governments. Reality seems to have changed. UFOs are a new mythology, a new religion. Only instead of angels, grays, instead of prophets, contactees. Instead of sacred books, leaked forums, TikTok, and leaked reports. And you know what's scariest? This belief already controls society. In 2023, the U.S. Congress seriously discussed the topic of UFOs. Hearings, reports, generals on the podium, and no one laughed because the meme became reality. In this world where everything can be fake, aliens became a symbol of the truth, or the search for it. Paradoxical, but true. UFOs in the Middle Ages. The Middle Ages are often thought of as an era of wars, diseases, and dark superstitions without electricity or other modern conveniences. However, this period also saw the birth of important advances, such as universities, the printing press, and the first books. Not only did these advances influence the development of science and education, but they also provided historical evidence, including unusual events in the sky that could be interpreted as UFO encounters. One such example is a news leaflet issued in April 1561 describing a mass sighting in Nuremberg. On April 14, 1561, at dawn, residents of the city witnessed a collision of various objects in the sky. Spheres, cylinders, and other strange shapes. These objects fought with each other, and then one of them, a large black triangle, appeared in the air. The event lasted for several hours but did not cause any harm to the townspeople. Some believe that these were mass hallucinations, others that it could have been a UFO collision. Such events are not limited to Nuremberg. In 1566, in Switzerland, in the city of Basel, similar phenomena were observed. Strange figures in the sky, reminiscent of combat between celestial objects. In 1665, in Berlin, fishermen witnessed a battle of airships, as well as a strange object reminiscent of a modern description of a UFO. These stories indicate that UFOs could be part of human mythology and were documented long before the 20th century. Hongshan artifacts. The Hongshan civilization is one of the most mysterious cultures of ancient China, which existed about 7,000 years ago. It left behind unusual jade artifacts that depict humanoids with teardrop-shaped heads and huge eyes. Some of the figurines resemble creatures riding water scooters or even flying machines. These images do not fit into the usual ideas about ancient cultures and make you wonder, who or what were the Hongshan masters trying to capture? The unique Hongshan caves discovered in 1999 also belong to this culture. These man-made caves amaze with their size and complexity. Inside, you can see pools, bridges over rivers, stairs, and passages. The area of the largest cave is 12,600 square meters. But the real mystery is the traces left on the walls. They resemble modern tunneling machines, although technology of this level is not believed to have existed thousands of years ago. In addition, it remains unclear where the gigantic volumes of excavated rock disappeared to. Scientists have not yet found traces of its movement. Some researchers suggest that the caves and jade artifacts are evidence of contact with a more advanced civilization, possibly of extraterrestrial origin. The Glozell Tablet. In 1924, clay tablets with mysterious symbols and images were discovered in the small village of Glozell in France, causing a heated debate in the scientific community. These artifacts, found by a young farmer Émile Fradet, were so unusual that they could not be linked to any known ancient civilization. The tablets contain symbols and images reminiscent of ancient writings, but their origin and meaning remain unclear. Some researchers have hypothesized that the Glozell tablets may be evidence of a lost or unknown culture that developed in the region thousands of years ago. Another more radical theory suggests that the tablets may be traces of extraterrestrial intervention, although there is very little evidence for this. However, the authenticity of the tablets remains in question. Since their discovery, scientists have conducted numerous studies to understand whether they are real ancient artifacts or skillful forgeries. To date, none of the versions have received definitive confirmation, and the Glozell tablets continue to be one of the most mysterious archaeological finds of the 20th century. Ancient Rome and UFOs. When you think about UFOs, the USA, Area 51, and maybe even the USSR pop into your head. But ancient Rome, who connects antiquity and aliens anyway? It turns out, not only science fiction writers, there is a real historical source. The Book of Signs by Gaius Julius Obsequent. It describes dozens of heavenly wonders, glowing shields, flaming ships in the sky, flying figures, strange creatures. Plutarch, Livy, even Pliny the Elder, they all wrote about it. Of course, from the perspective of their time as signs, punishments, the will of the gods. But let's be honest, what could they know about technology? If you see a round, shining thing in the sky and don't know what an engine, glass, or metal is, how would you describe it? Only through myth and fear. In Rome, there was even an official priest, the pontiff, who wrote down all such things in the Annales Maximi, a chronicle. And if he saw what we today call a UFO, he would have written down a shining sign or a burning circle in the sky. Now think, what if he really saw it? The conclusion is simple. The ancients were not stupid. They simply described the incomprehensible in understandable words. And we, 2,000 years later, are beginning to recognize something familiar in these descriptions. Kryptonite on Earth. Jadeite, a mineral discovered in 2006 in Serbia, attracted attention due to its striking similarity to kryptonite, the fictional substance that weakens Superman. The chemical composition of jadeite is almost identical to the kryptonite described in the film Superman Returns, including sodium, lithium, borosilicate, and hydroxide. However, unlike its fictional counterpart, jadeite does not contain fluorine, which gave kryptonite its famous green glow. This is why jadeite is white. The discovery of this mineral has attracted great interest from both scientists and science fiction fans, becoming an example of how fiction sometimes intersects with reality. Jadeite was found exclusively in the Jadar River Valley in Serbia and is of interest due to its high lithium content, which is used in the production of batteries. Out-of-place artifact. Out-of-place artifacts are finds that do not fit into the traditional understanding of our history at all. They are found in places and layers of the earth where they should not be. The most amazing thing is that, given their age and level of complexity, such objects simply could not have been created at a time when, as is believed, no advanced technology existed. Official science often declares such finds to be fakes or simply ignores them, but their number is growing, and it is no longer possible to turn a blind eye to them. Let's take, for example, the mysterious bioduct metal pipes discovered in China. These pipes go deep into the ground and extend to the shores of lakes. Their age is estimated at 150,000 years. The composition of the pipes, including iron and other minerals, and their antiquity baffle researchers. Some believe that this is the result of natural processes, but others believe that the pipes could be traces of a highly developed civilization or even left by aliens. No less mysterious is a forged nail, the age of which exceeds 350 million years. This nail was found in a rock layer dating back to the Paleozoic, a time when neither people nor metalworking existed. How could such a nail get into ancient rocks? Some scientists suggest tectonic processes, others talk about the intervention of previously unknown civilizations. Fossilized tools were found in Provence, which could have been made by people or even from ancient trees. If this is true, then such finds indicate the existence of intelligent beings who had woodworking skills long before the appearance of the first known civilizations. Other finds are even stranger. In Antarctica, the Eltanin antenna was discovered, which at first looked like a high-tech object. However, it later turned out to be just a sea sponge. Nevertheless, the very fact of such a misconception shows how wrong we can be when faced with the inexplicable. The Paluxy River tracks are another mystery. Giant humanoid footprints were found next to dinosaur tracks. This discovery challenges our understanding of the chronology of life on Earth, since, according to the theory of evolution, dinosaurs and humans never crossed paths in time. There are other examples. The anomaly on Mount Ararat, which is associated with Noah's Ark, the clay figurine from Nampa, the age of which is unclear, or the Wolf's Egg iron, which is considered a remnant of the prehistoric era. Let's not forget about the Tucson artifacts, a collection of 31 lead objects found in 1924 near Picture Rocks, Arizona. These artifacts include crosses, swords, and other objects engraved with Latin and Hebrew inscriptions, as well as images resembling medieval symbols. Initially thought to be the work of ancient Mediterranean civilizations that allegedly crossed the Atlantic in the 1st century, many scholars later believed that they were hoaxes created in modern times to mislead researchers. Either way, each of these artifacts challenges our understanding of the past and opens the door to new theories and research. Perhaps our history is more surprising and mysterious than we could ever imagine. Kokno Stone. This massive stone, located near the town of Clydebank in Scotland, is covered with complex carved patterns consisting of spirals, circles, and lines, and it is still considered one of the most mysterious archaeological finds in Scotland. After conducting a lot of analysis, scientists confirmed that the stone is about 5,000 years old. The patterns on the Kokno stone attracted attention due to their uniqueness and complexity. Some researchers interpret these symbols as an ancient map of the starry sky, indicating the possible use of the stone for astronomical purposes. In their opinion, spirals and circles can represent stars, planets, or even trajectories of celestial bodies, which could help the ancient inhabitants of Scotland track the movement of celestial bodies. Also, the stone could serve as a place for rituals or ceremonies associated with the worship of gods or spirits of nature. However, there is still no consensus on what role this artifact played in the lives of ancient people. Proponents of the paleocontact theory hypothesize that the patterns on the Kokno stone may be evidence of contact with extraterrestrial civilizations. According to them, the complexity and symbolism of the images may indicate interaction with a more advanced culture, possibly not of terrestrial origin. The clearest photograph of a UFO. On September 4, 1971, in the northern highlands of Costa Rica, photographer Sergio Loaiza was conducting aerial photography of Lake Cote for the National Geographic Institute. Using a special mapping camera that takes photos at 13-second intervals, he did his job, unaware that one of the frames would be unique. Upon returning to the laboratory, Sergio checked the photographs and noticed in one of them a mysterious round metal object located on the right side of the photograph. It is noteworthy that an object resembling a flying saucer was not detected in either the previous or subsequent frames. For some time, the National Geographic Institute tried to hide the discovery, prohibiting Sergio and his colleagues from talking about the incident. A metallic flying object with a diameter of more than 18 meters was a closely guarded secret. But in 1979, a photograph appeared in an Argentine newspaper and was analyzed by experts. Soon, Costa Rica declared the photo as official confirmation of the existence of a UFO. Despite many years of study and debate among researchers in this area, no one has been able to say what kind of object this is. Skeptics suggested that the object on the right side of the photo was some kind of debris or stain that got onto the film while working with photographs. In 2021, a family friend was able to obtain the original photo in order to scan it using modern technology. This made it possible to digitize the image, making it clearer and more detailed. This allowed skeptics to see the saucer-shaped object at a higher resolution. The updated image allowed us to discard a number of banal assumptions and theories, since this was not a stain or chip on the camera glass. So what was it? Share your guesses in the comments. Neuralgic bronze figurines. These figurines with horned helmets shed light on mysterious people whose origins are still controversial. In the 12th century BC, the Mediterranean faced a catastrophe: the invasion of the so-called Sea Peoples, who united to attack the major civilizations of the Bronze Age. These warlike peoples, described by the Egyptian pharaoh Ramses III, attacked such great powers as Ugarit, the Hittites, Cyprus, the Canaanites, and even the mighty Egypt. It is with their invasions that the Bronze collapse is associated, the disappearance or weakening of many great states. One of the most mysterious tribes among the Sea Peoples are considered to be the Shurdans, or Shardana. In Egyptian images, they are depicted in horned helmets and armor. However, the most interesting thing is the connection of this people with the island of Sardinia. In the Phoenician inscriptions on the Nora stone, Sardinia is referred to as Srdn, the same name used by the Egyptians to refer to the Shurdans. This theory is supported by the Nuragic bronze statues found on the island. They depict warriors with the same horned helmets as in the reliefs of Ramses III and armed with shields and swords. This raises the question, were the Shurdans originally from Sardinia, or did they settle on the island after their campaigns in the eastern Mediterranean? While historians continue to study the artifacts, this mystery remains unsolved and gives rise to many hypotheses about the role of the Shurdans in the disappearance of Bronze Age civilizations. Do we have a chance to find out the truth? After all this, a logical question arises. Will we ever find out what is really going on? Thousands of testimonies, pilot reports, military records, strange ancient artifacts, coincidences in myths and religions around the world. Even NASA no longer brushes it off, but creates special commissions. The U.S. Congress holds hearings on UFOs. Something is definitely happening, but what is happening remains behind closed doors. And this is perhaps the scariest thing, because the more you dig into the topic, the more you understand. Not all the evidence lies on the surface. And perhaps the key to understanding is not in fiction, but in the very structure of how humanity processes the unknown. In religion, in myths, in fears, in technologies that were too early. As in the case of the antique battery from Iraq, or with the laser grinding of Egyptian stones, or with equal blocks in Pumapunku. None of this is UFO evidence, but none of this is explained either. Does this mean we've been visited, or are we just seeing what we want to see in history? But what if all this is true? Let's be honest, what if all this is not just coincidences, myths, and fantasies? What if someone is really watching us? What if we are not the pinnacle of evolution, but just one of the projects? One of the experiments in a long line? What if ancient people really communicated with those we call gods, but in fact, they contacted those who flew in from somewhere outside? What if religions, prophecy, signs in the sky, even the very origin of humanity are all parts of one big story that has been hidden from us, or which we are simply not yet ready to understand? Or maybe they are not ready to make direct contact with us. There are too many coincidences, too many mistakes in official history, too many phenomena that are more convenient to ignore. But one day all the puzzles may come together. After all, as Carl Sagan wrote, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. I'm not saying that all these stories are true, but turning a blind eye to them means missing something important, because maybe it is in these fragments, these anomalies, these inconvenient questions that the truth is hidden, which we are not yet able to perceive. I do not want to believe blindly, but I also cannot ignore it when the same images come from all over the world, from different eras, from different cultures. Flying ships, luminous entities, contacts with gods who taught, punished, disappeared, and perhaps will return. People have always looked for the answer. Where did we come from? But what if it already exists? We just haven't been looking in the right place all this time? And if we are not alone, then who is looking at us from the sky?